October 21st, 2009, 7-year-old Summer Thompson's dismembered body was found in a Georgia landfill. The man that would be arrested for her murder had a bizarre childhood and a disturbing history of being a predator. Welcome to the Murder She Shed. My name is Holly. Enter my quiet, secluded, peaceful she shed in the woods as I tell a rarely discussed true crime tale to you. Just make sure you smash that subscribe button in order to hear a true crime story you may not have heard on any other channel. So come join me. What else do you have to do? I mean, you wouldn't be on YouTube if you weren't bored. So just smash it. I'll be here for you once a week to tell you some true crime. This case does involve the essay and murder of a child, so viewer discretion is advised. Summer Renee Thompson from Orange Park, Florida, loved playing dress-up and drawing. She also loved to sing and dance, but had no rhythm. Her mother said she was nicknamed Grace because she was so klutzy, but still loved to dance. Her favorite color was purple, and her favorite song was You Are My Sunshine. Probably shouldn't sing, but I like that song. It's a good song. Summer was a beautiful little 7-year-old girl who just wanted to help make people and animals feel better. Summer loved all animals, but just like me, she especially loved dogs. She loved to stop and pet dogs no matter where she was at. They seemed to draw her in, and unfortunately, this would be her demise. On that fateful day on October 19th, 2009 in the afternoon, Summer was walking home from school with a group of children. That included her older sister and her twin brother. She happened to have her hair in pigtails with red ribbons and carrying her Hannah Montana backpack that day. She's a beautiful little girl, and just that morning her mother had put her hair in pigtails and stuck those red ribbons in, and her mother said, I don't even remember if I told her I loved her. One of her classmates, as they were walking, started to tease Summer about a speech impediment she had. She took speech at school to help correct it, so Summer was really upset that she was being teased because it was something she couldn't help. But you know how kids are. They make fun of other kids. They just do. Kids are kind of mean sometimes, and that day they were being a little feisty towards Summer. It hurt her feelings and caused her to cry, so she ran up ahead of all the other children so she could be alone. This would be the last time Summer was seen alive. Summer's mom was a single mother to 3 children, and although she was always still at work when her children got out of school and walked home, she made sure to text a friend and neighbor every day to ask if all 3 children made it home. That day her friend said no. Summer had not came home, and she knew this was not like Summer. She thought something was very wrong, so she immediately contacted the authorities. The search began, and people were questioned, including the man who helped the children cross the road, the crossing guard. He said that by the time the group of children had made it to the crosswalk, Summer had already been missing. He knew that he had not seen her that day because she was such a loving little girl that always came and hugged him before she even crossed the road. Summer's mother was frantic and could not even come in the house that night because she was just worried that her little girl was out in the cold without a jacket, and she felt like she didn't want to be warm and feel safe if her little girl was out there alone and cold. People started blaming Summer's mom because she let her children walk home from school. But they didn't know about the school's rule that if a child lived under a mile from their home, they couldn't even ride the bus. As authorities investigated, they learned a very scary fact. It was learned that within a 5-mile radius of Summer's home, 162 predators also resided. Something Summer's mom had no idea about either, and this fact terrified her. Why would they let kids walk home from school when that was true? There was so many predators all in that area. Investigators had searched everywhere except the trash, so they tailed 9 garbage trucks from Summer's Florida neighborhood to a Georgia landfill 50 miles away, and then picked through the trash as each rig spilled its load. They sorted through more than 225 tons of garbage and almost gave up hope when they happened to see a little girl's pair of legs sticking up above the trash. Summer had been immediately identified by a birthmark in her clothes, later by her dental records. 2 days after her disappearance, she had finally been found. Not like they wanted to find Summer, though. This little girl had been dismembered and thrown in a cooler in a trash can as if she was nothing more than a piece of garbage. Now the question became, who was the demon that had done this to this beautiful little girl? The hunt for the suspect was on, and investigators were not going to stop until they found the monster. Only their first suspect would be a completely innocent man. They interviewed all 162 predators in the area and did not suspect any of them, but one older man with no criminal record became their main suspect just because he was kind to children. Richard Corpus' house was on the same street that children walked on to get home after school. He was often outside and would greet the children as they walked by. He enjoyed children. Sometimes he would let them pet his puppies. Corpus said he used to find Summer with her face pressed up against his chain-link fence, just trying to get a peek at his dogs. She wanted a lick in the face. She loved dogs. There's only one house between the vacant property where Summer was last seen, in the corner where a crossing guard said he never saw Summer pass by. It is the house where Richard Corpus lived. Over the next few months, police honed in on Corpus. They seized his computers and monitored his calls, but did not find one bit of evidence. In the meantime, Corpus was struggling because he loved children so much, and being suspected of such a horrible crime just really broke his heart, to the point that he even thought about unaliving himself. But because of his family, he didn't. He always was Santa every Christmas. And he was sad because this year he could not be, because he was scared that it could cause further trouble for him. He said police even traveled to other states to question his sisters about his past, and that they gave him a polygraph test, but he acknowledges that he did fail. Corpus agreed to a DNA swab, but it didn't come back until January, and all that time him and his family were being surveilled by police. Finally, in January, the DNA proved he was an innocent man. Authorities had wasted time on one man who was completely innocent. There was one predator in their midst that they had missed, because when he had moved back in with his parents, he hadn't given authorities his new address. And because of some very observant folks in the area, this case would finally be broke wide open. Turns out police have been tipped off about Jared Harrell's alleged interest in child images 2 months before Summer disappeared. But because of his change of address, they didn't realize that he was now one of Summer's neighbors. Lisa and Rob Buchanan knew Jared Harrell through his stepfather, who was a very active member in their church. In the summer of 2008, when his mom, Ennis, asked whether 24-year-old Jared could move into an apartment complex with the Buchanan's daughter, Katie, and her fiancé, the Buchanans just agreed. But the arrangement didn't last long. First, the young couple with children, girls at that, realized some of their stuff had went missing. Then one day, their little girls went into Jared's room so they could sneak around and play games on his computer. But instead, they found a file on his computer called Toddler Insertion. They opened it and saw images that would scar them for the rest of their lives. Luckily, the girls did tell their parents. Jared was thrown out of their house, and the computer was turned over to authorities. Some of the images were of children Jared had victimized, including a 3-year-old little girl relative. They did not know where Jared had moved to after leaving their home. But the couple were driving down the road one day. They were going to mow a lawn. He did landscaping, and they noticed Jared's car in a driveway. And then they remembered hearing about Summer's disappearance, and it hit them. What if it was Jared? He lived right by where Summer lived. She would have walked right by his house. That terrified them, so they took the news to authorities. This is how Jared became a suspect. Jared had a bizarre childhood. When he was only 3 years old, he had a rather strange stepfather who was also a predator. His mother, Ennis, had an affair on Jared's dad with her boss, Joseph Newman. Joseph Newman was a self-professed inventor and messenger of God. Among the messages he claimed to receive from God was an order to marry Ennis and her 8-year-old daughter, who is Jared's sister. Newman claimed God spoke to him the morning of February 13, 1989, telling him to marry Jared's sister. And he then said, "It is exactly 5 months to the day that Hurricane Gilbert became the greatest hurricane of the century." Don't know what that had to do with anything, but I guess he thought that was the thing that was telling him he should do it. He should marry an 8-year-old. Why not? And he legally married the mother. I know, disturbing. Newman claimed God would tell him when to consummate the marriage with the little 8-year-old. Newman also believed the world would come to an end in 2012. He also declared UFOs are real and they will play a part in the end times. Of course, the UFO part seems to be becoming more real lately with all the talk, but that's a whole different subject. Don't get me started. Joseph Newman was also famous because of his invention called Newman's energy machine. He claimed his energy device that harnessed huge amounts of power from an electromagnetic field could revolutionize the way we heat our homes, power our automobiles, and reverse the tide of global warming that threatens us. Newman claimed his invention produced 25 times the energy it consumed by electromagnetically converting mass to energy. He had the backing of physicists, he had the backing of the public, and he had the backing of investors, but he did not have the backing of the U.S. Patent Office.
Well, who's against you? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, it's quite obvious the U.S. Patent Office is against me. I also have that belief about this judge is against me, that he's biased and prejudiced. He has not followed the dictates of the law, and the facts are very clear. They're there.
He even had a documentary made about his invention and was on many shows like the Johnny Carson Show.
We are back. Would you welcome, please, Joseph Newman. Nice to meet you.
I appreciate you having me.
Do you think your machine, if it can be commercially made available, can, for example, a person would buy a 300 or 400 pound unit and all of a sudden would be able to produce all of the energy they need for their home? Is that certainly within the realm of possibility?
Exactly. I have absolutely no doubt about it. That such a device hooked to a home, a person will never have to pay for energy again. The device will be made smaller as put in an automobile, plane, spacecraft, you name it. This device...
Using the atoms from the magnetic field.
And what you're doing is that you're converting mass into energy on a 100% conversion process. That's one of the first prototypes, and that's a 700-pound magnetic rotor, and it's got about 8,000 pounds of wire around it. Now, it's gone down. That unit there weighs 135 pounds, and I showed that at the Hilton in New Orleans. There was approximately 2,500 people attended, 1,000 people outside, and another 1,500 standing to get in. And it would demonstrate something like 25 times more out than externally and put it into the system.
You get more wattage out of that than
what you'd put in. In fact, Railback Battery Company is working with me now trying to design a battery to hold up to this recharging effect of this system. Because not only will it run the device, it'll put more energy back into the battery pack than came out of it.
So you could, that's fascinating. Tell you what, we could stay here all night.
He never received a patent on his invention because they said it required more power than went out, which would not produce energy, they claimed. But there's many people that have tried to replicate this machine that he invented and tried to improve it, but so far, I guess no success. After he made claims about marrying the little girl, Jared's bio dad was able to get custody of Jared and his sister for 6 years until his mother divorced Newman. Then she was able to get the children back. Records show that Jared's mother had at least 56 different addresses in almost as many cities while Jared was growing up. She has been married 4 times, filed for bankruptcy 3 times, had been evicted from at least one home, and was found guilty of grand theft after allegedly stealing thousands of dollars from an employer. By the time Jared was grown, his mother had settled down in Orange Park, Florida, just a few houses down from where little Summer had lived. And when Jared had been kicked out of the married couple's house, he went straight home to his mommy. His mother, Annis, was now married to an amazing man. Her new husband had recently been featured in the local media for his Good Samaritan work organizing volunteers during emergencies. He was a good-hearted man who always helped those in need. Annis, on her social media account, they look like the perfect family. Isn't that usually how it is? They always look like the perfect family, and behind the scenes, it's not so great as people portray a lot of times. As a teen, Jared was always overweight and slow in school. He was often bullied by his classmates. On Jared's MySpace account, his favorite song was called Waking the Demon. His account appeared to show someone who was out for revenge, angry. Jared was known to make off-color jokes about children, and friends had heard him say he wasn't afraid to steal a child. He told one individual, "What is worse than finding 10 babies in one trash bin? One baby in 10 trash bins," which is a very awful joke considering what he did to this little girl. Just 2 days before Summer's disappearance, Jared's family had moved, but he hadn't left the house yet. This is when Summer walked by the house she had been in front of so many times before. In fact, this family had a dog she loved to pet. The day she walked by, she didn't see the dog. The front door had been left open because Jared was moving his stuff to his car. So on this day, Summer decided to walk to the front door and ask it if their dog was okay and where was he. Jared saw the perfect opportunity, so he told Summer the dog was in the house when really his family had already taken the dog. He asked Summer if she'd like to come in the house to pet the dog. And of course, she wanted to tell the dog bye since he would be moving. After Summer entered and didn't see a dog, she began to get nervous, tried to leave, and he blocked her. Then this made her start to scream. Of course, she panicked, but so did Jared. He hit Summer several times in the head. When the screaming still didn't stop, he then grabbed her behind her head, and then he took the other hand and put it over her nose and mouth and held it there until she passed away, which would have taken several minutes, in which he had a chance to second guess his decision to murder this beautiful little girl. But he didn't choose the right choice. He stared her in the eye and sat there and waited till her last breath was taken away. Then you know what the sorry sucker did? He undressed her and essayed her dead body. He only admitted he had done this after they said they had found DNA on her body.
I was moving things from my bedroom to the garage. While I was in my room, I filled a bag up full of clothes, and on my way back out to the garage, I noticed Summer in the doorway. I kind of started to approach her a little bit, and I said, "What are you doing in here?" At that point, she started getting anxious. I guess she looked like she was just scared to death.
Right.
And she started screaming.
So you tried to make her be quiet because you didn't want anybody to hear her screaming. And how did you said you put your hand over her mouth?
Correct.
What happened from there?
She kind of went limp. Through all the panic and everything, I noticed that, she wasn't moving.
Right.
At that point I realized that she was probably dead.
The only thing that had come off of her at that point was just her shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. We realize it's difficult, but you've told us a lot of difficult things.
But I'd much rather know the truth about it and know that it's something we can explain than it be something that people could take a couple different ways. Did you maybe spend a couple of minutes looking at her, or just kind of recovering from what you did?
Yeah, I did.
Well, tell me what happened so I can understand it.
I guess after that all happened, that's when I did that.
What did you do?
I guess that's when I took off her clothes.
When you put her in the bin, do you remember now what she looked like when you put her in the bin?
She was pretty much naked.
It kind of sounds like that sometimes your sexual interest or your sexual desires will make you make a decision that you regret, a bad decision. Do you think maybe sometimes they drive you and you don't even realize it?
I mean, I'd like to think that I didn't have that much control over me. As far as that situation is concerned with Summer, it was by chance. I didn't provoke it. I didn't want it to happen. Like, I would give anything for it to not to happen. I didn't want it to happen. I didn't actively go out and try and find somebody and say, "Hey, come here, you want to see my dog?"
After all that, he degrades her body even more by dismembering her so she would fit in that cooler. He then drove her body to the rear of Fleming Island's Beauty and the Beef restaurant, where he actually used to work, and left her in a dumpster. The garbage was hauled away the next day. The detectives had just been lucky to find her little body in that massive pile of trash. After disposing of her body, he moved his shed. He had a shed in the backyard of his parents' house. He moved it over to his aunt's house and decided he would live in her backyard. There was around 4 months between when the murder occurred until he was finally arrested, and police believe he was getting ready to do this again. His aunt's neighbors and Jared's friends began to notice how strange and bizarre he was acting. He lost weight, became reclusive, and began growing facial hair. The neighbors noticed he would run from the shed to the house, the shed and the house, and this was like in the night. In the early morning, he would do this, only wearing sweatshirts and short silk boxers. During the interview, police asked Jared where he would rate himself in a scale from 1 to 10 in being a monster. Jared said, "I'm going to be a 10. After Jared was arrested, his mother spoke to Jared on the phone, letting him know how she would be his alibi.
Hey, honey, how are you doing?
Morning there, I guess. That's how I literally think the stuff is killing me.
Well, trust me, you would not believe everything here. We're right in there with you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not all you. Trust me, it's going to get a lot uglier for them before it's over with. Trust me. Keep your chin up, keep your mouth shut, and get an attorney.
I'm trying. Just don't believe anything like that.
Honey, I don't believe anything. Trust me. And the thing is that I'm your alibi, so I have to be real careful. What I say to anybody. We're making no comments to any of the news. The little girl's mother's making no comments, and so they're trying to pull from everything else that they can. And it's making them look like idiots. So the longer you're there, trust me, the better it is. It's tough, I know, but just hang in there, okay? And trust me, we've got a whole group of people here that's doing everything we can, on that end, and that's pretty far-reaching. So you just gotta trust me.
A lot of people say things on jail phones when they know they're being recorded. I'll never understand that, but it happens so very often. Jared Harrell pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual battery, possession of child pee, and other charges. Some of those charges stem from an unrelated case involving that little 3-year-old relative. He received life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the trial, Summer's twin brother spoke. All I can say is that little boy is stronger than I will ever admit to being.
This is Summer's twin, by the way, Jared. You should look up here and address us since you murdered her.
Jared?
He won't look at you, just go. Coward.
We know you did this. We have evidence. She trusted you. But you had to do what you did. And look where it got you. And now you're going to jail.
Summer had to be looking from heaven that day and smiling and telling her little brother, "You are my sunshine." A little boy made me tear up. The emotions that he showed made me wonder how Jared could sit through something like that with no emotion. Then I remembered he is heartless. He wouldn't have done that to Summer had he not been. Such evil people in the world. It's just so sad. It's sad. Most of y'all know that my house got blown away from a tornado in April. And I'm getting a rebuilt house and I'm so excited. Anyway, I'm going to let y'all know the walls are going up today. I'm so excited. I'm putting a picture up right now. I'm just excited. I can't wait till we get back to normal. Normal's good. I like normal sometimes. That was way too exciting for me. I'm usually all into excitement, but that tornado was a little much, just a little much. Simon probably wants to go for a ride, so I'll let him tell you bye. Boom, boom. That's what I figure. That's what I figure. I thought you would want to. He wants to go for a four-wheeler ride. Yes, he does. He wants to go for a four-wheeler ride. Yes, do it. Ready? You ready? You ready? Just give it a smash. Anyway, I'll get started and I'll be quiet. Well, I won't be quiet. I just will quit rambling and I'll tell a story. How about that? She loved to stop and pet dogs no matter where she was at. They seemed to draw her in. I could draw the dog in. This is Samo. If you haven't ever been to She Shed, this is my baby Samo. Thousands of dollars from an employer. Employer? How come I can't ever say employer? At the trial, Summer's twin brothers. He hates the UPS guy. You don't care if all these workers are out here building our house, but this UPS guy does not like him. It's okay. He's backing up. Okay, Come join me, Holly, for true crime. You don't have to spend a dime, and you'll get to hear my beautiful rhymes. Grab some tea with lime, and we'll have a good time. I don't ignore all that. The rhymes are horrible. I always try to rhyme. I'd love to be able to rap, just not built to be a rapper. I guess you can tell by my accent. Probably wouldn't be the best rapper, but love to be able to. I think rapping is so cool. But unfortunately, I think that's out of the cards for me. I'm lucky to be able to tell a story with this accent I have. But thank you guys for subscribing anyway.
The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamt